Welcome to the Talking Book Voices, the podcast. Get ready to embark on the adventure with us as we dive into and celebrate the magic of the Texas Talking Book Program. Let's raise our voices together and make the world of literature accessible for all. The Texas Talking Book Program is a division of the State Library and Archives Commission and serves as a regional library for the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled, a division of the Library of Congress. The Talking Book Program provides specialized library services to individuals who have a qualifying visual, physical, or reading disability, such as dyslexia. In each episode of the Talking Book Voices, we'll delve into the heart of the program, uncovering its history, sharing inspiring stories, and exploring the vast collection of materials it has to offer. We'll bring you the latest updates, interviews with program experts and patrons, and useful tips to make the most of this invaluable program for Texans and beyond. So whether you're an avid reader, someone who with a print disability seeking accessible materials, or just curious to learn about this great program, this podcast is made for you. Don't forget to visit us at www.texastalkingbooks.org for more information. So let's begin the Texas Talking Book Voices, a podcast by the Texas State Library and Archives Commission.
Are you new to the Talking Book Program? Been here a while, but want to know more? Join us for a live Zoom meeting called TBP 101, where you will learn everything you need to know about TBP, our services, and all the cool things we offer. For more information, call us at 1-800-252-9605. Hi, podcast listeners. My name is Laura Jean, and I have been a Reader's Advisory Librarian here at TBP for 10 years now. Before that, I worked as a library assistant at various different academic and public libraries for 12 years.
And my name is John. I've been a Reader's Advisory Librarian at the Texas Talking Book Program since 2014. I was also a Reader's Advisory Librarian at the Arizona Talking Book Library. And before that, I was a Youth Services Librarian in Houston, Texas, Tempe, Arizona, and Glendale, Arizona. What is Reader's Advisory? One of our major responsibilities as a Reader Advisory Librarians is to know about all the different types of books that are available for our patrons. And one way to categorize books is by genre. Now, what exactly is genre fiction? And for our purposes, a genre is a group of books that have a similar subject matter, like mysteries or historical fiction. So tell me a little bit more about what defines a historical fiction genre.
Well, historical fiction is where nonfiction historical books and realistic fiction collide. Realistic fiction, those are stories that resemble real life, that have characters that react in ways that actual people do. Nonfiction history is presented as a factually accurate record of past events that is supported by research and physical evidence. And when you combine them, you have a story woven around real people and real events.
Okay, how is that done? I mean, how do you combine something that is so factual, nonfiction history, with a made-up or fictional story? How can a reader trust that the historical parts are really true?
That is an excellent question. Sometimes authors need to tweak the facts a little bit to make them fit their story. But when they do, they include an author's note, either at the beginning or at the end of the novel. That way, they can be completely transparent about any changes they made from the facts. They often list the sources that they used when researching their novel so that readers can investigate further if they wish.
Okay, then how far back does a novel have to take place for it to count as historical fiction? Because it's all relative, right? I mean, for me, a book that takes place in the 1980s isn't historical at all.
Oh, no, I totally get your point. It isn't for me either. If I can remember it, it doesn't feel historical, right? What is historical is different for someone in their 20s versus someone in their 50s. But a good rule of thumb is anything that takes place before the life and experiences of the author.
So, why do people want to read historical fiction? I mean, what attracts them to it? If you want historical accuracy, read a nonfiction history book, right?
No, sure, sure. I mean, I understand that view. I think historical fiction is a little less imposing than a nonfiction history book can be for some readers. It's a way of dipping your toes into a time period or a place or a way to learn about a historical person that can be less intense than a nonfiction history book on the same topic.
So, are there subgenres?
In historical fiction, beyond the initial setting question about time and place, there aren't so much subgenres as frame. That's the key to getting the historical fiction fans the books they want. Frame.
So what is frame?
It's the key elements of a book that draw a reader into the story, like the setting, tone, character motivations, or major themes. The best way to determine a reader's frame is to ask them which historical fiction titles or authors they've enjoyed in the past. But for our purposes, looking at the appeal factors or why historical fiction readers enjoy the genre can help give us an idea of frame.
Okay. Well, what are some general appeal factors?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Historical fiction tends to have the following appeal factors: world building. So, historical fiction is a location genre, like science fiction or westerns. So, a big part is the world building aspect. This is not just the setting, though. It's a background details about people, events, place, culture, customs, beliefs, society, and habits. They want to be completely immersed in a specific time and place. Most importantly, these details must all be accurate. Readers expect and demand that. Another appeal factor is characterization. The characters must fit the time period. You cannot have a character with modern sensibilities in an historical environment. But on the other hand, you don't want characters that are over romanticized versions of a person from that place and era either. They must be shaped by the times in which they are set, not vice versa.
So, how does that work with historical romance?
Of course, you'd come up with the exception to the rule. Yeah, historical romance is the exception. Modern readers require a more modern sensibility in their female romance protagonists, but they still want all the details to be accurate. But as I'll mention later, historical romance really belongs to the territory of the genre blend. But we'll talk specifically about historical romance and other historical fiction genre blends a little later.
What about the plot?
Oh, a storyline. Good question. So, generally, there are two types of storyline. Either they focus on an event or time period, or they revolve around a character. Though occasionally it's a combination of the two. Events can be short term, taking place over a couple of days, a month, or a year, or they can be epics that take place over decades, generations, even millennia. So you'll want to determine if a reader is more interested in the time or the place or the characters.
Like Mishner?
Yes, exactly. Or Edward Rutherford, or the sagas following a particular family over generations, like John Jakes. And the characters can either be actual historical figures or completely fictional characters. Or you can have a mix of both types in the same book. For example, you can have a book where the main character is a completely fictional character who runs into an actual person from the past. And then pacing. Speaking of Mishner, actually, due to the world building in historical fiction, these books generally are more slow paced, but not all of them. Those that have action or mystery aspects may be faster paced. And even with the slower ones, readers may use terms like compelling or exquisitely detailed instead of slow. The tone and mood, they can range from humorous to somber, so you need to be aware of this when you're asking readers about the type of historical fiction they're interested in. And language and style. Some fans of historical fiction enjoy the use of dialects or more historically authentic language, while others find it distracting. With audiobooks, it can be difficult to understand. Sometimes authors will incorporate genealogies, letters, diaries, or even authentic documents to increase the feeling of authenticity in the novel.
So what about major themes?
Some of the major themes can be things like love during wartime or coming of age. Think of a broad topic that kind of sums up the book.
Now, what about these, what you call it, genre blends you keep teasing us about?
So, so think of historical fiction genre blends like historical fiction adjacent. These appeal to readers who are okay with the historical content being plausibly accurate. Sometimes it's more the other genre, but with historical details thrown in as a way to add color to the story. Make sure to ask your readers if they want a little mystery in their historical fiction or a little historical fiction in their mystery. And historical romance. As I've mentioned above, because we are dealing with modern readers, generally the female protagonists in this genre blend have a more modern way of looking at things in regards to romance than may be historically accurate, but all the other details regarding the settings are accurate. And then there are historical mysteries. Sometimes these revolve around an actual historical figure who is faced with a fictional mystery they must solve, and sometimes the main character is fictional as well. Historical fantasy. And these are usually set in a historical setting. This genre blend will add magical elements like dragons in George R. R. Martin's work. Historical science fiction.
Okay, well, wait, what? How does that work?
I know this sounds like an oxymoron, but these books combine a historical character or time place with science fiction elements. Um, sub some of the subgenres in historical science fiction include steampunk novels, which can take place during the Victorian era but combine retro futuristic elements like dirigibles or airships, for example. And then there's time slip novels. Originally, this was a plot device used in science fiction or fantasy, where characters accidentally travel through time. It could be a historical character who travels to the future, so be careful when talking to readers. Make sure that the majority of the book takes place in the past if they're more interested in historical fiction. And then there's alternate history. Oh, Harry Turtledove is well known in this subgenre. Speculative fiction asks, what if? In alternate history, the question is, what if this well known historical event went differently? What if someone else was in charge? What if this famous historical character lived somewhere completely different? And then there's historical horror. Generally, these books take place in a historical setting with a paranormal or other traditional horror element included. A good example of a subgenre is weird westerns. These are set in the golden age of the American West between the end of the Civil War and World War I, but they incorporate paranormal elements.
Well, what are some current trends? I mean, what's popular right now in historical fiction?
Well, the genre is broadening out. There used to be a really strong emphasis on just the European side of history, and it's broadening to encompass all areas of the world.
Okay, so now I'm willing to try a historical fiction book, but I'm not into historical romance, and I'm really not big on any particular time or place in history, though.
Hmm. Let's see if we can do a genre blend. What's your favorite genre usually?
Well, I do like horror.
Well, then I suggest Alma Katsu. She covers a couple of different time periods, late 19th century, early 20th century, and World War II, so you have a couple of different time periods to work with.
Well, thank you, Laura Jean. You've given us some excellent things to think about in regard to historical fiction genre. Or maybe you're already a fan of historical fiction, so here's a question for you. What is it about historical fiction that you like? Do you have a favorite time or place you like to visit through fiction? Or perhaps you turn to historical fiction to learn about different times and places or historical people. Thinking about what specifically you enjoy about a book or a genre helps us make the best recommendations for you, and it helps us think outside the box to help you find books in similar genres or from similar authors you might enjoy. If you're a patron of the Talking Book program and would like to receive personalized reader's advisory, please reach out to us. You can contact us by calling 1-800-252-9605. That's 1-800-252-9605. Or you can send us an email at tbpral@tsl.texas.gov. Our dedicated team is ready to assist you and provide the recommendations tailored to your interests and reading preferences. We look forward to helping you discover and enjoy new and exciting books.